call this meeting of the regular meeting of Sharonville City Council to order. If you could please stand and join me in a moment of silent prayer and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please bow your heads. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Lucas, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Tankersley.
Here.
Mrs. Sharpshire.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Lovett.
Here.
Mr. Cox.
Here.
Mrs. Knight.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt.
Here. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes of the last meeting? Seeing none, the minutes will stand as approved and written and distributed. All right, reports and communications, Mayor Hardman.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. So it is always a delight when we get together and see all these great faces out here in council chambers, because we don't get to see them very often. And usually the reason we see all these faces out there is because we're here to honor somebody who really means a lot to you and means a lot to our community, and that's what we're going to do today. We've got a little thing that we started a little while ago called a Good Neighbor Award, and it's set aside for those folks who do a lot for their community, do a lot for their neighbors, and really show what Sharonville is all about. So we received a nomination for an individual, and that would be Franca Burton sent us this, and I know that she has some kind words that I'm going to share with all of you, but I know you all know this that are here. So she sends the following about Phil Schmidt. Phil is a good neighbor because he cares about his community by getting involved in helping others. Phil has been a member of the Sharonville Kiwanis since 1959. He works at all the Kiwanis events, including the Pancake Breakfast, Sharon Fest, the Halloween Party, the Arts and Crafts Show. He is the Key Club advisor at Princeton High School. He volunteers monthly at Matthew 25 Ministries and supports Power of the Pen. Phil is actively involved at St. Michael's Parish, where he is a Eucharistic minister, lector, St. Vincent de Paul contact, pre-marriage counselor, marriage mentor, and takes communion to those who are not able to go to Mass. On Monday mornings, Phil delivers food from Panera to the food bank. He's been a Boy Scout leader, a member of the Sharonville Business Association, and his family-owned funeral home sponsored local youth sports teams. Phil is passionate about helping others and volunteering his time. I think he's very passionate about his community. I know he's passionate about his wife, Barb, and they are just stellar individuals who are part of this community. In fact, when we got Franca's nomination, and I spoke to Franca as well on the phone a little while ago about ways that we could appropriately honor Phil for the work that he does. We kind of, Anna, my assistant, went back into archives and realized we actually had a day for Phil back in 2019 celebrating his 60 years as a Sharonville Kiwanian. But so that was one time we honored him, but there's never enough opportunities for us to honor a person who really does do the city of Sharonville a real solid for the way he is a fantastic community member and a wonderful part of our neighborhood. I see a great group of folks out there. So those were Franca's words. Before I call Phil up here and present him with this beautiful frameable certificate, does anybody else want to say some nice things about Phil? This is your chance. Barb, this would be your chance to say whatever you want about your husband if you want. Come on up, Tim.
Bill got his pilot's license and everything. I did get a pilot
all these words are great. This piece of paper is wonderful that I'm going to present to you as a good neighbor. But these folks are the testament to who you are and the influence that you have on our community here in Sharonville. And for that, I am grateful. I am grateful that I've gotten to know you, and I've known you for years. It's great that I'm able to look out to folks like you and show what it means to be a part of this community and to care about the folks that you're neighbors with, the folks that you interact with, and reach out to. So it is my honor to present you with this Good Neighbor Award, Phil Schmidt, on behalf of the city of Sharonville. So congratulations. Thank you. All right. Anything to all these folks here?
Well, it was a surprise when they called me and said that I should be here today and that I was going to get this award. And I appreciate Franca for putting my name in. And I see several other Kiwanians out there to urge me on, I guess. I've been a Kiwanian since 1960. So, but and I see some. They said I was involved with the Key Club, and I see Dana Zinnicker here, who's been the Key Club advisor for the last 18 years or so. And I've been the go-between between Qantas and the Key Club for 22 years. And there's four of my Key Clubbers out there to wish me thanks to. I really appreciate it. It's kind of fun going to these meetings every week, almost every week anyway, and being an old man with these young kids, see their vitality and everything. So, but I really appreciate it. And I'm not the only one. My wife Barb is involved in a lot of these things with me that I do. So and we've been married for 64 years and be 65 in May. So. So I appreciate her help and going with me on some of these things, and me going with her on some of the projects she has too. But and I have some of my family here. My two daughters are here. I have let's see, three of my grandchildren are here, and back there, that little guy. That is one of my great-grandsons, so I appreciate them coming out to share this with me also. And I appreciate Sharonville. I just moved here in 1959 actually. 59 we got married, and been here. I haven't wanted to move anyplace else. I'm stuck. In
a good way.
And I like it. Hopefully I will be able to stay here for the rest of my time. So I thank you for this honor. I really appreciate it.
God bless you, Phil. Thank you, sir. With Mr. Coulter's permission, we're going to take a short little intermission because I bet they'd love to get some pictures with your family and stuff here before we get started with the rest of our meeting. I know all of these folks up here want to congratulate you as well. Mr. Coulter, why don't you go on over to that side? We'll take a picture too real quick. On over. That you do for the city of Sharonville. Today was a great day for the city of Sharonville, and many of you were able to make it out as we cut the ribbon for our expansion of the Sharonville Convention Center and official opening of the Todd Portune Hall, where we added 20,000 square feet to our exhibit space. It is a really fantastic looking space. It's a jewel for our community, for the region. It was great to be there. We had many
wonderful folks in attendance to help celebrate that day with us. I'm going to have the honor of joining Visit Cincy's annual meeting tomorrow downtown to continue to speak about the greatness of our new expansion. So I'm certainly honored to accept that invitation and share a little bit about what we're doing out here in Sharonville. But it was great to be able to do that today, and thank you all for your ability to attend. I know we had lots of TV cameras there, so hopefully you saw some folks talking about Sharonville and the Sharonville Convention Center today. Other than that, that's all I have for my report this evening, unless you have any questions.
All right. Thank you. Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. We have 6 pieces of legislation this evening up for vote. 2024-08E. Jim Doughton's here. That deals with naming rights at the convention center.
Good evening, everyone. The purpose of the legislation, this would authorize the negotiation of a potential naming rights agreement with Lion Ventures. The ordinance would allow the Safety Service Director and the Convention Center Director to enter into an initial valuation on the naming rights sales agreement. An actual naming rights agreement contract with a third-party sponsor could follow with council approval. This agreement would allow Lion Ventures to complete an initial valuation, what the naming rights agreement could be worth, and then allow Lion Ventures to begin marketing and selling the naming rights to a third party. Council would have to approve a final independent agreement with the potential of a third-party sponsor. So this evening I have members of the Lion Ventures here to speak, if that's okay, and to answer any questions that you might have. Jeff?
Thank you, Jim. Mayor, Council President, members of Council. I'm Jeff Birding, the President and CEO of FC Cincinnati, and Lion Ventures is our company, and we appreciate the opportunity to be with you here this evening and to be considered for this purpose. Since Carl Linder and I created FC Cincinnati back in 2015, it's been all about winning, being a family-friendly club, but also making a community impact. And we went out and built a privately funded stadium that has a naming rights partner on it that recently has been named the best soccer stadium in the world by the World Football Congress. Beat Wembley in London, and where the World Cup final was played in Qatar. The reason that we're here looking to partner with the city of Sharonville, joined by my colleagues Vince Cicero, Chad Munitz, and Stephen Young, is because we feel like we've built up some capacity, some experience, sometimes the hard way and other times through some success. And consistent with our values of wanting to make a community impact, we thought we could share some of our experience throughout the community for regional partners who are also looking for opportunities maybe to help monetize and pay for assets. Let me be clear, our stadium, TQL Stadium, love Ken Oaks and Kerry Byrne, and TQL is a great company. At the end of the day, I think I could say, you know, we'd rather maybe it were Linder Stadium or Cincinnati, but we got to pay the bills. And having a good naming rights partner that fit the values and the brand identity for us, for FC Cincinnati, is a way to help pay for the facility and maintain it and keep it first class. And it allow us to draw events and to draw people to fill the building and ultimately help pay the bills. And so when you look at these kinds of arrangements, again, we sold the naming rights to our stadium. You know, about 80% are only sold to local companies, someone that sees a unique opportunity to achieve their business goals with a community partner. I would like to say that I think FC Cincinnati, our team, is pretty unrivaled in terms of the depth of our relationships in the Cincinnati and in this regional business community. And we think using the experience that we have, not just at FC Cincinnati, but you're talking about folks that have decades of experience in professional sports, that we'd have the ability to be a unique partner to help you evaluate this opportunity, and then ultimately to make the call if it's something that you seek to do. And then if yes, then ultimately evaluate that partner, and if you feel that the fit is a great fit. Lastly, some of you may be wondering, this seems so odd that a sports team maybe is doing this, and maybe we should just be sticking to signing players and hopefully winning games. And I would offer, we're not breaking new ground here. The biggest company in this space is called Legends. It's been around since 2008. It was the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees that did it. And about a decade later, the San Francisco 49ers spun up a company called Elevate. You may have heard Fenway Sports Group. They own Liverpool and some other teams, of course, the Red Sox. Chicago Cubs have a development company. We're doing some work with them. Marquee, Monumental in D.C. My point just is that I'd love to say that I'm some visionary creating some new thing. I'm not. I'm looking at what these big national teams and companies are doing nationally, and I'm saying I think we could do it better than anyone else in this region. And so we're putting ourselves out there. We do have one client. You would be our second client. This is the group. We're not outsourcing it. This is the folks who will be working on it with me in support, and we would love the opportunity to work with you. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Any questions for Mr. Birding?
I don't have any questions, but I just like to add that, Jeff, it's been great meeting your team. That's why we're recommending it from the administration to council to approve this. Moving forward, I think you guys really have what is the best interest of Sharonville and the Sharonville Convention Center in mind as you're going out to number one, look at what options we have, what the value is that we can place on something like this, and then ultimately, hopefully, find a partner to work with us. And so your team has shown that. You've shown that in your own ways that you've been supportive and with other hats to the city of Sharonville and what we're able to do with the convention center, which is truly appreciative. And so it is my pleasure, and hopefully the rest of the council will get on board and approving this contract tonight so that we can move forward and look at some options we have with our convention center. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one for clarification. Jim, do you want to touch on what exactly this agreement would do, just the exterior versus some of the other aspects? There was
Sure. Just to clarify, again, this agreement would allow Lions Ventures to go out and work with us and evaluate what they think a deal could be worth. And this has nothing to do with our entrances or any of our exhibit space or our ballroom space. This is strictly for the facility naming rights. Those elements are, I think, maybe potentially down the road, low-hanging fruit that we could look at and ask them to evaluate, but this is strictly for the naming rights. Correct?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I do have one question. I know it had been discussed previous to this meeting. How common would it be, for example, if it were I'll use the FC Cincinnati Sharonville Convention Center versus the FC Cincinnati Convention Center? That comes to mind.
I think when we would be talking to prospective parties, they're going to be interested in the assets that come with the naming rights and the opportunity for them to leverage said partnership. I bring that up because if it's, to use your, I'm going to use TQL, okay? It's worth more to TQL to be TQL Stadium than it is to be TQL FCC Stadium. And if it's TQL FCC Stadium, then maybe the signage isn't TQL by itself, but now it has a subhead. And those factors in some way probably reduce a little bit of the valuation that a company is willing to pay. So specifically for here, I'm going to just use, because it's the Duke Energy Center, Could it be the Duke Energy Cincinnati Center? It could, but maybe less. Here, if Duke Energy said, well, we're good community partners in Sharonville, we'd like it to be the Duke Energy, I think we would have discussions, Duke Energy Sharonville, if that was what, hey, it'd go over a little better if you could do that, but it probably would decrease the amount that someone would see as the valuation. But certainly, I will say, we've had that conversation, and that would certainly be a part of conversations if we get to the part that you voted to say, yes, we're good with then, based on the valuation, to have those conversations with folks. I hope I answered your question.
You did, thank you.
I have a question. How many stadiums have you named, like, for rights, have you been in contract with? Other than TQL?
Yeah. Vince, do you want to, because Vince probably has a little more experience in this than I do.
I'll just add, as you talk about naming rights in addition to the name itself on the broader facility, we have 9 other pieces of real estate within the stadium itself that are named. So MedPace Tunnel Club would be an example. So as we've sold naming rights, which have been mid-6 figures into 7 figures and multi-7 figures, it's been a variety of those. I've also, my prior work was also with the Western Southern Open, so I was a tournament director, COO, worked on the naming rights for that. Had previously also been with Ironman. We sold naming rights across multiple races. So in the sports space, across our group, but specifically for me, it's been multiple sports, multiple settings. So I don't know if that answers your, okay, thank you.
And I should add, Vince is the primary person here who's going to be out leading this project.
It's like,
Okay, how much money are we talking that will bring to the city? Is there like I'm a housewife, so I have to watch my money, so how much money are we been getting in there?
It's a great question. What I would say is this. The first phase is the opportunity to work on your behalf, to do an evaluation, and come back to you with a range. Just to give you a sense, Duke Energy pays downtown for the Duke Energy Center, publicly reported, a little over $1 million a year. So if you think of that as the ceiling, you're probably somewhere in the 6 figures to maybe a low 7 figures. But I want to be fair. I don't want to get out in front of the process. And so that's why I think it would be inappropriate for me to give estimates. But if we use Duke Energy downtown, at least as the ceiling, I think you get a sense. And then if you approve this tonight, we'll get to work for you immediately and come back quickly, because I think that the goal here is to give you some sense that you can then go to the next stage of green lighting conversations that allow us to get to work on your behalf, if you so choose.
and there were a number of groups that were talked to about this venture, and I think that Mr. Downton brought them forward because they were local, and they've had a lot of success in naming rights with the team that they've got in place. So this is not the only group that the city has spoken to, but I think we believe that's the best moving forward. So, okay. Mr. Tankersley?
Just one question for you guys. So if we agree to this down the road, is there any chance, because the convention center is the crown jewel of Sharonville, and it definitely is, would a partnership totally remove Sharonville Convention Center if somebody's interested in being a sponsor for that?
The name Sharonville Convention Center? Only if you agree. At the end of the day, a company is going to want to put their name and their brand identity on the convention center. As I said earlier, there are scenarios where it could be the something Sharonville Convention Center. I think I should be transparent that likely maybe reduces a little bit of what someone would be willing to pay. But at the end of the day, the deal is for this group to approve. And I will just say, I think we've heard that there's an interest in exploring strongly an opportunity to potentially keep Sharonville in the name. Ultimately, we'll come back with some guidance and some data and look for a clear direction and hopefully a green light to go out and represent you in the market to see the best deal that we can bring forward within the parameters that this group is comfortable.
Thank you.
If I may, Council President, Mayor, I just want to offer in closing, the reason we're doing this, I want to be really clear, we care about the community. Carl Linder's integrity and his name, which is FC Cincinnati, mine personally, or other owners, Scott Farmer, George Joseph. I mean, we are Cincinnati. We are this region. We care about your success. And so I want to be clear, the reason we've created Lion Ventures is because we feel we're neighbors. We're in this together to grow the region. And I think we will bring that intensity of wanting to win on your behalf to this process in a way that, and I say this respectfully, you know, the folks in Dallas or the folks in San Francisco, or there's a group up in Cleveland. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just a client. And I thought the city, this region, could be better served by having some local people who care about the outcome in a way that you would expect, just as we saw from the award here, that's what neighbors do. And that's how we approach this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2024-11E deals with a police body-worn camera grant. Chief Nesbitt's here to talk about this.
Good evening. Tonight's legislation includes or pertains to an award. We applied for a grant last fall to receive funds from the state to support our body-worn camera program, and that's funds available both for equipment, leasing of equipment, and also for employee hours. We, through the budgeting process, got approval for the hiring of a person that would do this work. We have not yet been able to hire him. The hiring process has not yet concluded. But the tentative award from the state is for $90,000, and we would like legislation that would allow us to use those funds towards that purpose.
Any questions for Chief Nesbitt? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ordinance 2024-12E through 2024-14E deals with fire department purchases, all approved in the budget. The reason that they're back in front of you is because each exceeds $50,000, so they require their standalone ordinance. Chief?
Good evening, everybody. We'll start with 2024-12E. That is for the purchase of a response vehicle that will serve as our ALS car. And I did ask that we push this through as an emergency, in that we did find a company in Athens that does state bidding vehicles, Ford vehicles, and they happen to have a 2023 that they will sell at the 2023 state bid price, saving us a couple $1,000s on that purchase. 2024-13E is this is the radio project. This is the ongoing, replacing all of our mobile radios for the fire department. So we're in year 3 of a 5-year project to replace the radios that are, they won't be serviceable by 2026. And I do want to point out that we did apply for a grant to cover $50,000 of this radio purchase. We did receive an award of $10,210. So we will, that grant then is a reimbursement grant. So once we spend the money, we will be reimbursed for $10,000 of that money. And 2024-14E, this is for, and I know you probably all feel like we've been talking about this for a year and a half, because we have, for the remodel of Station 88. As you recall, we talked in 2023 about doing a $250,000 remodel. That building is not in a real desirable location, and they are going to be putting a roundabout in front of that building in 2025. So we have really scaled back the remodel of that building, and this year we requested $75,000 that was approved in the budget. basically just to get the bunk rooms separated and the locker rooms and bathrooms separated so that those facilities are a little bit more private, since we have males and females both working in that building.
Chief, if I can, 2024-14E had a typographical error in it. The corrected version is the one that Council President and Mayor will sign. Also, the cover memo had first quarter of 2023, and obviously that's first quarter of 2024. And I also made a mistake. Ordinance 2024-15 is also up for a vote this evening. So.
In 2024-15, again, I guess I was behind myself when I did these last two. That is also supposed to be quarter 2 of 2024, not 2023. So those have been corrected. And again, this was approved in the 2024 budget, $180,000 approved to replace the roof at Station 86. We have had to repair that roof several times over the last 5 years, and some of the shingles are beginning to curl. So we would like to get this sent out to bid and get the bid process working in hopes that we can get the work completed in quarter 2 of 2024.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Sunderman? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you all.
That's the legislation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. I have no report this evening. Ms. Buhite, Clerk of Council, is not here this evening, but she did want to note that there's a public hearing on February 27th, 7 p.m. in Council Chambers on zoning code changes made in Ordinance 2024-17. Mr. Cunningham, Auditor's Report.
Thank you. Just kind of want to talk about a little recap from last year. We had a lot of things go our way in 2023, and you know, we all got an email saying that we had record set-asides at the end of the year, and you know, the reason for that is because our receipts were higher than what we expected, and we were able to manage our budget, and we spent less than what we expected. So when you put those two things together, you get a little bit of a surplus. And just like folks out there might do at home, when they have a few extra bucks in their pocket, they put it in the savings account, and at some point you might spend that on remodeling, or you might buy a car or something of that nature. That's no different than what we're doing, so we call it set-asides. So at the end of the year, we were able to put about $7.5 million into set-asides, so we can do that and use that for future projects. And so that's all very, very good stuff right there. So we'll continue to march on in 2024, and let's hope that our receipts are as good as they were last year, and we're able to manage our budget, I'm sure, and so we'll be in good shape. So I just want to make that comment because we did have a lot of things go our way last year, and so knock on wood that happens again. So good job, everybody. The second thing is I want to mention that I was at the ribbon cutting today, and it has to be said that when you have a project, a $24 million project, there's stress involved. And Mr. Downton is laughing, and that's why I'm actually mentioning this, because I want to say that Jim Downton has done one heck of a job managing this project. And I know it's not quite done yet, and you're not out of the woods yet, but we're far enough along to make that statement, and I appreciate what you've done. It's not without stress, I can tell, but you've handled it beautifully. It's been great, so thank you for your work.
All right, any questions for Mr. Cunningham? All right, seeing none. Treasurer's Report, Mr. Irie.
Thank you. The Treasurer's Report is on file, and you'll notice that it has our end-of-the-year numbers for 2023. The income tax was up 0.29% year-to-date compared to 2022. Motel tax was up 4.27% year-to-date compared to 2022. You'll notice in the income tax, the general fund revenue, income tax revenue, is actually down in comparison to the 2022 numbers, down 2.1%. But as it's pointed out in the report, that year, the explanation for that was that we had additional set-asides or collections that are allocated to the tax refund fund, including a $500,000 allocation in November of last year. So in actuality, the total of our collections for taxes in the past year was higher than the year before. So again, good news, and that is my report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Irie? Seeing none. Now's the time for residents desiring to be heard before council this evening. Ma'am, if you could please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second, please. I skipped over our law director, Mr. Lippert. Now
I was okay with letting the residents go first. First off, let me announce a Records Commission meeting. It's required to occur every 6 months per Ohio Revised Code. That's going to happen February 27th, same night as our council meeting at 6:30 p.m. I know Jim's already sent out notification to department heads regarding updating their public records retention schedules if they want. Boring, but necessary. Ohio Revised Code also requires me to give an annual report. I'm supposed to give that at the first meeting of the calendar year of council. Unfortunately, I was out at the first meeting, a minor surgery that was successful. So I'll give it tonight. And a lot of what you deal with as director of law, although I believe very firmly in transparency, you deal with a lot of privileged information, but I can share what's a matter of public record. So in regard to Mayor's Court, Mr. Mayor, Kevin Hardman gave a good report on all the totals having to do with Mayor's Court, so I won't bore you with those again. But I will say, Chief Nesbitt and I, we started off when I took over as law director, and he took over right around the same time as Chief of Police, saying that we didn't want our Mayor's Court to be like other Mayor's Court where we had the reputation of just trying to get people's money. We wanted it to be a deterrent for bad traffic offenses and that kind of thing, and I think it has been. I know there may be some people here about the intersection of Creek and LJ, and I'll say that we just had an attorney who showed up last Mayor's Court really upset that his client wasn't getting a deal on a stop sign violation at Creek and LJ, and so he entered a plea, and then he went ahead and appealed it downtown. And he was really surprised when he just saw me again downtown, and I was right there telling him he wasn't going to get a plea downtown either. So that's what happened. So if you have any questions about anything regarding Mayor's Court other than the totals, feel free to get with me. There is some pending litigation that Sharonville's involved in. There's an Americans with Disabilities Act claim filed by Mr. Mink back in 2021 in federal court. The fact that it was filed back in 2021, it's proceeding just about as fast as any federal court case does. We do still have the City of Sharonville versus Liquor Control Commission case pending in Franklin County Common Pleas Court. The final brief on that case was filed January 26th of 2023. So that is actually taking a lot longer than an administrative appeal should take. I've been in contact with our local counsel, Ed Hasty, and he's trying to get a hold of somebody with the court who is not calling him back about what's taken so long, but it's business as usual until we get a decision. There's another court case filed by Mr. Mink pending in Hamilton County Common Pleas Court. That is an appeal of an administrative decision of our Board of Zoning Appeals. And the last one is an appropriation action having to do with the 42 path that we filed, Mr. Ritchie filed on our behalf, that's still pending with the mobile home park going up 42. And if you guys want details on any of those, please feel free to approach me. And that's my annual report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Lippert? All right, seeing none and seeing that there are no more individuals on my reports and communications list here, I will now move on to residents desiring to be heard before council. So, ma'am, if you can please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
I appreciate the lead-in about the Creek and LJ. That's what I wanted to discuss. My name is Donna Pickers, and I live 2 doors down from the corner coming down the hill of LJ and Creek. Mr. Shaw is going to give you an example so you can see what I'm talking about. Next to me is Mr. Donnelly on one side, Mo Shaw on the other. Next to Mo is Jack Scheidt. I want to say that correctly. And across the street is Steve Long. And we want to discuss the proposed removal of the parking on Creek. When we received the first letter in December, it spoke about the speeding and the non-compliance at the stop sign, and gave some possible solutions. And then I received the second letter, and that was on January 11th, and it stated it was decided to go with option 1, which is what we've passed out to you. And the drawing that you have is what was included. But on that drawing, it removes parking from in front of Mr. Donnelly's house, my house, and other Creek residents going up the hill on the other side of LJ. And this is where the problem lies for us as residents. Currently, there's only parking on one side of the street, so removing 6+ parking spaces between Jeff and Mefford creates really a major inconvenience for everyone. Mo Shaw, for instance, who lives next to me, his family has 6 cars. So they use the spaces in front of my house and Mr. Donnelly's house every night. They have to. The only option for us would then be to find parking further down the street or further up the street, but further away, and that displaces parking for the people who live in those houses, pushing them down and making a domino effect of parking. And if we had any guests or we had service people in, creates a bigger problem. So, you know, we don't have an option of increasing the width of our driveways. I mean, we have neighbors on one side and lamp posts on the other. There's just no option. These are smaller houses and smaller lots, and it would be impossible. So Mr. Shaw, Mr. Long, and I spoke with Mr. Tankersley the night that the letter arrived just to explain the issue that we were having. And then Mr. Shaw went and spoke to additional neighbors to talk about the domino effect of parking in front of their homes. I then spoke to Mr. Bassam the next day. And when I was talking to him, he explained to me that the purpose in removing the parking was to make it appear more narrow in that area and force you to look at the stop sign, make it look like one lane and force you to look at the stop sign. In my humble opinion, if you remove parking along there, it already looked narrow with the parking, but you take the parking out, and again, it's doing just the opposite, I would think, making it look a little wider there. So anyway, the bottom line is that we are absolutely in favor of doing something about the speeding, doing something about the stop signs, the non-compliance of people stopping at that stop sign. But we're against the removal of the parking that we're allotted at this moment. So we're asking that we reconsider the drawings to see what we can do to solve the problems without removing the parking. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council for Mrs. Pickers? All right, thank you. I have the question, where did this option come from? Sorry? Mr. Bosom?
Yeah, no, yeah,
Okay.
we had, obviously, you've had, Mr. Donnelly has been at numerous meetings of council, has been at other committee meetings, sharing some of the data, dealing with the stop sign issues there. So as a part of administration, Mr. Bosom with the Public Works Department kind of put our heads together, looked at ways that we could call attention to the stop signs. It's not just the no parking, it's the restriping of the street to narrow it so that the image of an island kind of idea, to give some options to try to call out the stop signs. And so that's where the options came forward. It's on hold right now. I mean, I could say that, as we go back to the drawing board and look at things. I don't, we're just trying to find a good solution, in addition to what we're already doing. So, that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you have a question, or did you want to come up and, okay, if you can come up, just state your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Jack Scheid. I live at 3993 Creek Road. A little bit of my background is I have been in building and development for the last 40 years. When I read the resolutions that were brought up to resolve the issue of literally the high speeds and the people not stopping at the stop sign, there's so many different ways that it can be done at a less expensive cost. And I didn't understand why we were going in the direction we were going, because literally it creates an animosity among my neighbors on who gets home first and gets the parking spot and doesn't have to travel down inside a neighborhood to park. So the people that are abusing the street literally create an animosity within the neighborhood. I walk every night after dinner. I go down the streets, northbound on Creek, turn on Medford. When I cross that street, there's a crosswalk. I've been doing this for over 10 years. 3 occasions a car has stopped when my wife and I approached. 3 occasions. One occasion, this guy came so fast down the road, I looked up towards my house at the intersection of LJ and Creek. I seen his headlights. We started across the road. If you're familiar with the area, you should have plenty of time. We had to skip to get across the road to keep from getting hit. The fact to me is the crosswalk should be hatched. People should be respected that are in the crosswalk. There should be a stop sign at that crosswalk. If you're stopping at LJ and you're stopping down at Medford, you're slowing them down at least, or at least if they run the stop sign, they're going a little bit slower. We go up to Jeff Lane and we cross over there. Again, it's in the 3 range of how many times someone stopped for us to cross the crosswalk. So a stop sign coming off of Plainfield to LJ to Jeff, to LJ, to Medford. That's 3 stop signs. What is it, 1,000 feet? 1,500 feet. But it will literally slow the traffic down. I have seen maybe a dozen cars pulled over there. One of them was pulled over tonight. I was like, hey. I'm a Marine. I love the law, and I drive an hour to and from work every day. I put up with the garbage that's on the road all day long. I don't feel like I should have to come home and spend my nights and weekend watching these people going up and down the streets. So I just wanted to, if I can, give you a couple ideas of things that I have seen or done in my history. I know that we spoke of speed bumps. There's a multitude of speed bumps, 3 in particular, that you can use. It's not just one speed bump. So when you're talking about plowing the streets, there's 3 different types of speed bumps. 2 of them allow the plow to go across the speed bump without damaging the speed bump. If you don't want to put speed bumps in, they got rumble strips. You can either etch the road or you can burn it into the road. Either way, it's a pretty inexpensive cost. Again, the stop signs at the crosswalks, road markings. So if you're heading northbound or down the hill into the city of Sharonville, there's signs on the right side of the road. Put a stop sign on the other side or a stop ahead sign. something else to tell people, hey, there's a stop sign up there. You can utilize that either which direction. Markings on the road. So if you took, most stop signs are, what are they, 24 inches wide, white? Somebody help me there. I don't paint them, I just ask somebody to put them in. But anyway, you got a long white stop stripe. Stripe the road several down. When usually in my situation, when I see people coming through a community and they're abusing it, we just kind of put more big stripes on it to slow them down to, it's a visual alert on the street to let you know that it's not. I think that's about it, really. But I just wanted to give my 2 cents. I know it isn't worth a whole lot, but it is my home, it's my community, and I don't like the people that are abusing it, and then I have to come down here and try to give my 2 cents.
Understood. Thank you very much for your comments. Any questions for Mr. Scheit?
All right, interesting thought. So you're recommending putting a stop sign at Medford. Would you keep the stop sign that's right there at the intersection of LJ and Creek? Okay, so you would be adding one, not removing one. Interesting. Yep.
Plainfield to your left, you come down around the hill, there's a stop where there's a crosswalk right there. So put a stop sign there. You already have the one at Elgin, and then another one at Mount.
Okay, all right. Real quick history, Mr. Danaher, but I was raised at 4021 Creek Road, right? So I know about the accidents. I wouldn't park in front of there because my brother's car got totaled many years ago. So fully aware of the area and the challenges there. Thank you.
Mr. Lovett?
So I just want to preface to all you, and I spoke to Mr. Shaw for quite a while, a couple weeks ago, but I just want to preface, the whole idea of this and what was delivered here came genuinely out of the desire to try to figure something out, okay? And I just want to clarify that. We're not trying to, I don't think we're trying to harm anybody's livelihood or their parking or look, I get it. We both live on Spinner. We park on the street, right? I mean, so we do understand that. And to the speed point, we pick up the speed at the bottom of the hill, right? And you guys are dealing with it on the top. So we do understand that there's a problem. So I guess I got a couple questions for you about a couple of the propositions that you have, okay? Rumble strips, paint markings, stop signs. In your experience, I'm deferring to you, obviously this is your wheelhouse, right? In your experience, how much do you believe that it would slow the vehicles down from, say, just your intersection down to the rec center? Do you, with those implemented, say we did all three, I'm not saying that, but let's say we did all three, what would that do, in your opinion, down the hill?
I developed 13th Street down in Newport, Kentucky, for Homer 2 years ago. When I got down there, if you're familiar with the area, you come up this bridge. I don't remember what they call it. The bridge leads you up to 14th Street where Homer was. 13th Street, literally there was a sign there that says speed limit 25. There was a sign coming off of, gosh, I can't even think of the name, big main street down there, Monmouth. Said the same thing, speed limit 25. It also said, for basically homeowners, it's not a through street. So one day I'm sitting there, this guy, my trailer's right on the corner. I literally hear this guy coming up the hill, and you hear the engine tone down, and then you hear the gravel spit and the engine going up. I come running out. I literally am developing this property. Most of the time when you're on a machine, a great big earth-moving machine, you're in a field. So when you get off of it, you're in the field. And I kept telling everyone, on this captain of the police department, you've got to slow these people down. It's 25 and they're doing 55, 65, 70. And he goes, oh, I'll come up there. He comes up and he gets one of his officers right. Literally, he's pulling people over left and right. So he comes up and goes, well, what do you think? We wrote a bunch of warnings. I said, a warning doesn't do anything. It didn't tell him anything. It said, it's okay to keep speed because you didn't give me a ticket. But what I did is I went to the mayor and I asked the mayor to put some speed bumps. And at first he said, no, we're not going to put any speed bumps. if one of my people die on that road, I am gonna tell them to come after me. There's no other, they were doing nothing to slow the traffic down. There's now 3 speed bumps on that road, and they drive pretty swift. So, slow them down.
And I appreciate that illustration. I would just say that, again, I appreciate you coming. I know, again, I spoke to Mr. Shaw for a while, and I asked, frankly, Mr. Shaw to bring whoever wants to, come talk about it. Because ultimately, you guys live up there, you live in this space, you guys are living with it to a different degree than we are, and at the same time, I do think that we all kind of have to work together to find that solution. And genuinely, from a genuine heart, that's what we were trying to do with Mr. Donnelly here, right? And obviously, that's not what's thought to be the greater good, but I know that my committee is the Community Services Committee, so this kind of goes in that wheelhouse a little bit as well. So I'm certainly open to continue to talk about this, and I appreciate you guys coming. So thank you for your time. Thanks for answering the questions.
I wanted to give you some alternatives that were less costly.
Yes, sir.
My name's Mo Shaw. I live at 3999 Creek. I wanted to make this clear because I think there's some things that my neighbors haven't addressed so that everybody's aware of it. First of all, when Mr. Donnelly approached me with this, I congratulated him. I thought that he was doing something for the entire community in the neighborhood. I didn't know it was a microscopic look at this one intersection. Okay, Mr. Donnelly has these huge boulders on the easement on the street, and personally, I think part of this has to do with he doesn't want anybody parking in front of his house for whatever reason. Maybe, I can't prove that. But what I can tell you is this design, especially on the south side of Creek, will not work. It will not achieve anything that you're trying to do. And you know how I know that? Because the same setup is on the north side of the intersection on the other side of LJ. So the idea was to push the traffic to the stop sign, move the stop sign in front of the telephone pole. Am I correct, Mr. Lovett? Right? So that's the exact same setup that's on the other side of the street. They don't stop there either. The only thing that this accomplished is it takes on-street parking away from myself and the rest of my neighbors in the neighborhood. We don't have long driveways in some of these lots. We need that parking. That parking, on-street parking, is an amenity for our homes. That's part of the reason why we chose to buy the houses where we did. We aren't the only family that has 3 kids, you know, that are in this city or this district. There are many people that I've spoke with. And yes, Mr. Donnelly's communicated this, but the perception and the gratitude for him doing this was for the entire community, not just our intersection, because it's a problem. My vehicle has been hit no less than 15 times. You can ask Mr. Tankersley. Every time it gets hit, I call him. I got hit making a left turn into my driveway where somebody tried to come around me and actually hit me about 4 or 5 years ago. We've witnessed, and you can go up there right now and look in my neighbor's front yard where there's a semi with a 50-foot trailer on it that made a U-turn at that intersection into their front yard. It is bad. It is bad. This anecdotal traffic stop that I got in my mailbox is just that. It's pure conjecture and anecdote. Whose radar gun are they using? Where are they taking the radar from? How much is the real volume of traffic coming down Creek Road? Just from an observation perspective, there's as much traffic at peak rush hour times coming down Creek Road that there is at Cornell and at Glendale Milford. So I don't know what the answer is, and I do appreciate you guys trying to take care of this, but I want this done for the entire community, not just us. But by doing this, like I said, the only thing it eliminates, the other thing that it creates a bigger problem for, and this is something that Mr. Lovett and I spoke about, and Rob and I spoke about, is if you park too close to a mailbox, they will not deliver your mail. If people are getting paychecks via the mail, I know it's mostly direct deposit, but if you're getting paychecks or whatever in the mail, anything like that, the post office won't do it. On this plan, you're basically eliminating the one of the spots that has the ability where there is not a there's not a post office or a post mailbox. Same thing on the other side of the creek. On the north side of LJ, if you eliminate the parking spots in this proposed option 1,
you can only park 2 cars on that entire block between, I think it's Jeff and LJ. And the reason why is because of things like fire hydrants. So when everybody's looking at this project from the micro, and you need to look at the macro. And Mr. Lovett was grateful enough to, to drive up there, because that's what I said. I'm like, why has nobody come up here and looked at what this situation is? Just doing something isn't always better than doing nothing, because if it's not the right thing. So I'm asking you guys to please consider not doing this and looking at something for the entire community, or not just our area of Creek, but the Creek Road up by Plainfield, the terrible intersection. Where Plainfield is, it's wider. Creek Road is narrow. It's not made, it was never made for this type of volume or this type of traffic. That's the reason why commercial traffic is banned through there. No trucks, but they come down through there all the time, every day, semis. Personally, I think it should become a cul-de-sac. I know that sounds crazy, but it would address every single thing that's wrong up there. But that's what you guys get paid the big bucks for. But anyway, that's about it. Like I said, the big thing is the mail. This really isn't eliminating anything except for parking places. It's not going to help, because like I said, the test subjects on the other side of the street, forcing somebody where there's a stop sign right in front of them, when they choose not to stop, they're still not going to stop. So anyway, thank you guys very much for hearing me. You got any questions?
No, but that's why I've addressed this every time Mr. Donnelly's been with us. I know this is the first time you guys have been here. When you talk about macro versus micro,
yes,
this is a problem. The speeding, the running of stop signs beyond just what exists at that intersection.
Absolutely.
I live in this neighborhood. I live down the street in this neighborhood, off Thornview. So I think you guys know that I'm very familiar with this neighborhood. I walk it regularly. And every time I walk it, I watch people drive right through these stop signs going 35, 40 miles per hour down 25 mile per hour streets. It's insane.
They're going faster than that.
That is why this group has budgeted money to add 3 new police officers for a traffic safety unit. Unfortunately, it's hard to hire police officers right now. It's hard to get them. It's hard to get them trained. It's hard to get them on the street. So we haven't been able to get them on the street because of that. But the money's there. I know the chief is working very hard to fill those positions. As you heard anecdotally from our law director tonight, we are ticketing. The police officers are out there enforcing this stop sign, enforcing all the other stop signs, and trying to get a hold of that. Honestly, I really think that's the answer to this problem, is the enforcement piece, and enforcing it and letting people know we're serious about it. And you're not getting warnings. You're getting the ticket, and you're going to pay it, and you're going to pay it every time you do it. Because unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever it is, it's usually your neighbors that are doing the problem. And we're trying to put an end to it. I think ideally and they can't be there 24 hours, 7. Even with 3 new officers, they're not going to be there 24/7. But that really is, I think, the best solution that we have to this problem. But we're trying to find others, and we're looking at options. We appreciate the feedback we're getting with regard to this option, and go back to the drawing board and look at it. But that's what we are doing right now, because I know I hear you guys aren't doing anything. You guys don't know this is a problem. We do know. We are working on it. We do have some solutions and things that we're trying to do to make a difference in it. So those things are out there. I just wanted to make sure I reiterate.
Yeah, absolutely. Has anybody even considered something as simple as a traffic light in that intersection? People aren't going to run a red, yellow, green traffic light. They're going to be less apt to do it.
There's certain warrants that you have to meet in order to get a traffic signal in that.
When I came down here 10 years ago for the same issue, I was told that the city was going to institute a traffic study and all this other yada, 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 and nothing. I shouldn't say nothing ever happened. We did get a crosswalk on the south side of Creek. We got a crosswalk there, but there's no stop sign there. What is it? Medford, yeah, and we didn't get a stop sign there either that I asked for. So you've got kids that are crossing the crosswalk on the downhill side of Creek where these people are going. And my son's a baseball player. I've got an actual radar gun, so it's not 35 or 40 miles an hour. There are people that get down to Medford that are going 60 miles an hour. I mean, easily. and it's just a matter of time before, God forbid, somebody gets killed. But anyway, that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Shaw? No? That- Thank you.
In case of the stoplight thought, would it be of the value to actually have some kind of correct numbers of how much traffic goes through and stuff? And the reason I say that, I know Mr. Donnelly gave you lots of percentages and lots of numbers, and when I got that information, I asked him, where did this information come from? You know, how did you acquire it? And he said, I visually counted. Now, I know he didn't do that 24 hours a day, right? So, and he wouldn't know how fast they're going, really. So I'm wondering, is there any value if there was actually a scientific study of how much traffic's going through to support a light, if that's what it's decided, or anything, but actually have some numbers behind it?
Have we, to the best of your knowledge, done a traffic study at that intersection?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to reiterate, thank you, everybody, for coming in and giving feedback on this. It is something that we've all been working on. I don't know that our traffic survey meets what requirements would be for installing a traffic light. So I think we may be talking about apples and oranges. However, we did do a traffic survey. We have devices that we mounted on poles. They record the vehicles traveling through there and their speed ranges. All of that was turned over to Mr. Donnelly, but I can give it to you guys as well. I'll get your information before you leave tonight. But we did do a survey. At the top of the hill was around 7,000 vehicles, and at the bottom of the hill it was closer to 14,000. So, for a 5-day period. And it measured their speed as well, and it gave us brackets of where those speeds were. I think I did pass that on all the councils, so they're at least exposed to the information. We haven't done a survey again since then. We've been using the equipment in other places throughout the city. So, okay. Any questions for me while I'm here?
Just maybe to reiterate what the speeds were, what the average speed was above and below and so on.
Since I don't have it in front of me, I'm strictly going off memory, but there were vehicles obviously within the range that we would issue citations for. I've been working with our traffic safety officer, which we do have one assigned. He has been very active, as well as our regular patrol officers when time permits. The enforcements are up considerably. I think the law director could speak to the amount of citations are significantly more than they have been in many years past. That is due to a lot of hard work and trying to find new ways to allocate our resources. The average speeds, I just can't do it off the top of my head. There was a very high percentage that were below what we would, overwhelmingly the cars are below where we would issue citations. But there were obviously vehicles within the range that we do traffic enforcement for, and there are various factors that impact the officer's decision on whether to issue a citation, and it's a variety of things because ultimately we have to prove a case beyond reasonable doubt, and if the officer has a reasonable doubt for some reason, he's not going to issue a citation. So, does that answer your question in a ballpark sort of way? I know.
Yeah, I just wanted to get out there. In the past, I've had throughout my ward neighbors to study. I think the feeling is they're going faster than, they're going very fast. When a study is done, they tend to be going slower and closer speed limit. But you will always have those outliers that are high.
Absolutely.
Right? But the majority is within that range, and it's not as fast as you think. I think one of the biggest challenges was going up the hill, the stop sign's so far off to the right on LJ, it is hard to see.
Stop sign violations are they could be part and parcel of the speed violations. We do take a different approach to enforce either. So when you're in a position to write a citation for a stop sign versus when you're in a position to write one for a speeding violation may not allow for you to do both. It just depends on the geography. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chief. Any other residents to be heard this evening before council? Mr. Schmidt.
Tim Schmidt, 12215 Pickwick Place. I should have said this at the first council meeting in January, and I didn't. I should comment that welcome Mr. Coulter to his new position as president of council. Glenn Lovett for his new position at council at large. Bob Cox for his position at council, or Ward 1. And Amy Sharpshire for her position at council at large. Welcome all of you, and to all the rest of you that have been here, thank you again. I'd also like to comment and thank the members of the road crew last week that did a real good job on treating all the roads in Sharonville. Thankfully, we didn't need them today, but as always, they really do a good job. Along with thanking all of the members of the Public Works for the job they do all year long. Really appreciate what they do. Change the subject a little bit. On the flood mitigation at Creek and Main, not Creek Road, but the main street in the creek. I assume that work is done. All of the construction equipment is gone. Couple problems I have. There's a big roll of wire. The roll's taller than I am. The wire is about 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter. That's on our property now. Does that mean it belongs to us? That we can somehow figure out how to haul it away and scrap it and keep the money? The other question I have is I noticed, again, last week because of all the rain, I did watch the creek and how the water was flowing. And yes, it was up high, but it was flowing smooth and it was doing a real good job. Once the water got down, I noticed that, how to explain this, if you're going north on Main Street and you're crossing the bridge, the new bridge, just east of the bridge, there's a whole lot of gravel in the center of the creek. It looks like there's an island in the center of that creek. Now, with the rain we've had, it didn't seem to affect it much, but I just don't know that an island like that should be in that creek. If you go by it tomorrow and look, I'm sure you will be able to see all of that gravel in the middle of the creek. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Any other residents to be heard this evening before council? Nothing from the library? Okay. All right. Seeing none, rule suspension motions. First and only reading for immediate effectivity of ordinance 2024-11E, 2024-12E, 2024-13E, and 2024-14E. Is there a motion for late delivery, or I'm sorry, motion for rule suspension for these ordinances? So moved by Mr. Levitt. Is there a second? Mr. Cox, thank you for the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Rule suspension motion, first and only reading for 30-day effectivity on ordinance 2024-15. Is there a motion for rule suspension for ordinance 2024-15? Thank you, Ms. Knight, for the first, Mr. Cook for the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Rule suspension motion for the second and third reading for immediate effectivity of ordinance 2024-08-E. Is there a motion for rule suspension for ordinance 2024-08-E? Thank you, Mr. Schmidt, for the first, and Mr. Levitt for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the motion passes as read. Unfinished business, Mr. Lucas.
All right, this is the second and third reading for ordinance 2024-08E, authorizing the Safety Service Director and Convention Center Manager to enter into a contract for Convention Center naming rights valuation and naming rights sales agreement and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-0E? All right, Mr. Cox, thank you. Second, Mr. Cook. Discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 2024-08E passes.
Okay, second reading on ordinance 2024-10, amending Sharonville codified ordinances 351.03 and 351.15.
Thank you. New business.
This is a first and only reading for ordinance 2024-11E, accepting a grant related to body-worn cameras and declaring an emergency.
Okay. Is there a motion for 2024-11-E? Ms. Knight for the first, thank you. Mr. Levitt, thank you for the second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, a first and only reading on ordinance 2024-12E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract to purchase a Ford Expedition approved in the 2024 appropriations budget and declaring an emergency.
All right, is there a motion for 2024-12-E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Ms. Sharpshire. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
And with that, ordinance 2024-12-E is approved.
All right, first and only reading on ordinance 2024-13E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract to purchase fire department radios and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-13-E? Ms. Tankersley, thank you for the second. Ms. Sharpshire, thank you, or for the first. Ms. Sharpshire, thank you for the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yep.
Mrs. Sharpshire.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, ordinance 2024-13E is approved.
All right, first and only reading on ordinance 2024-14E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract for the remodeling of Sharonville Fire Department Station 88 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-14-E? Thank you, Ms. Knight, for the first, Mr. Schmidt for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, ordinance 2024-14E is approved.
Okay, first and only reading on ordinance 2024-15, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for the roof replacement at Sharonville Fire Department Station 86.
Thank you. Is there a motion for ordinance 2024-15? Thank you, Mr. Levitt, for the first, Ms. Knight for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, ordinance 2024-15 is approved.
All right. First reading on ordinance 2024-16, amending Sharonville Codified Ordinance, Section 1305.01, and first reading on ordinance 2024-17, amending Sharonville Codified Ordinances, Section 1133.08. Would like to thank Casey for making these very short titles. I'll make sure to tell Terry that too. Yeah.
Well, I'll get back to writing long titles when Terry's back next time.
All right, thank you. Now we will go backwards. I wanted to get Line Ventures out of here, so we'll go back to council committee. So, Mr. Tankersley, Community Development.
Thank you, sir. The next BZA will be February the 14th at 6:30 PM here in council chambers. And then after that will be the Planning Commission meeting on February the 14th at 7 PM in these chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Tankersley? All right. Seeing none, Budget and Finance and Project Oversight, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. No report for Budget and Finance and no report for Project Oversight.
Any questions for Mr. Cook? Seeing none, thank you. Community Services, Mr. Lovett.
Thank you. No report this evening. Our next meeting is February 7th, 4 PM in Administrative Conference Room. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Lovett? All right, seeing none. Ms. Knight, Honored Citizens.
Yes, tonight I'd like to honor Jim Dowden and the Sharonville Convention Center. Today I was at the ribbon cutting, and I was for the new Todd Pertune expansion, and I was very honored to be invited and see that. It was awesome. There were so many people there. I was in awe the whole time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Knight? Yes, sir.
The comment, I would second Mrs. Knight's comments, but I also, that's the first time I was in there when the wall divider was removed. And I really didn't have an appreciation for how large that facility is now. It is extremely large. Great job. Thank you.
Yeah, Dave's planning dance competitions there, right? Him and Michael Bloomer, they're planning dance competitions, so they got it all wiped out.
That's why they don't have to travel these long distances, right?
That is correct.
Keep the money in the community. I love it. All right. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Yes, thank you. Safety Committee meeting will be on February 6th, 4 PM, Administrative Conference Room. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Schmidt? All right. Seeing none. Last chance for residents desiring to be heard before council this evening? All right. Seeing none. Any other matters to be heard before council this evening? Ms. Sharpshire.
I just want to let everyone know that the Princeton Symphonic Band and Orchestra is going to be heading to Hawaii, and they're having their send-off concert on February 12th at 7 p.m. It's a free concert, but they're also taking up donations, and they have a QR code if you'd like to donate for the Hawaii relief. So just putting that out there. It's a great opportunity to help the students and support them and listen to their beautiful music.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tankersley?
Thank you. I just want to thank the residents on Creek Road for showing up this evening, talk to you and everything else like that. And like the mayor said, be patient. We're trying to figure out the right way to correct the solution. But Mo's got my number on speed dial, so if there's any problems, sure get a hold of him. He'll get a hold of me. Thanks.
All right, any other matters to be heard before council? Ms. Knight?
Yes, I have two personal as Sharonville citizens. This last week, my mother was visited by the Sharonville Fire Department. She was having a little trouble, thought she was dying, but she wasn't. I didn't call 911 because I didn't want I wanted to make sure they knew where her driveway was. She was kind of hidden. But the two paramedics that came were just awesome. Mom just turned 94. We were at her birthday party, so I think she ate a little too much cake. But I just want to say to Chief Soderman, thank you so much. They treated her like she was a rock star, so I'd just like to thank her. Also, I want to do a shout out to the police department. One of the neighbors and I were noticing that our new neighbors across the street, their door was open and their dogs were out wandering. And we weren't really sure. We were afraid to go in because he knew it was a gentleman and his mother that lived there. So we called the police department. Ross Seifring came. He was awesome. I said she has a red car, but Gail and I were too short to look into the garage window, but he was kind of tall, so he looked in. The car was there, so that kind of panicked us a little. But he did all the right things, called to get a confirmation that he could go into the building, and then everything came out right. Their door just blew open, and the mother was with the son. So, but I mean, it was awesome. He was great. I was just so proud to say I live in Sharonville because I had these 2 services that were great. Thank you so much.
Any other matters? All right, seeing none, we have a request to go into the executive session as per Ohio Revised Code 121-.22G to consider the purchase and sale of property for public purchase. For those of you in the audience, we will not be reconvening as a city council, so you're free to leave. So with that, do I have a motion and a second to go into executive session? Mr. Levitt, thank you for the first. Ms. Knight, thank you for the second. Mr. Lucas, would you please call the roll?
Just to clarify, we will reconvene to adjourn. There won't be any other business, but we do have to come back into meeting to adjourn.
We will do that.
The new hat.
Exactly.
Yeah, just want to clarify.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Sharpshire?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.